A very good evening and thank you for joining GBS News at 9. My name is Stephen George and a sign language interpreter tonight is Paul Madenge. And now, leaders from the Kenya Kwanza government have today told off the Archbishop of Nyeri, Anthony Muheria, over his recent remarks on how the government announces their development projects. The Archbishop earlier today said that the government should work on delivering to Kenyans rather than publicizing what they intend to deliver. Speaking to the press, Archbishop Muheria called on the government to cease being an advertisement agency, saying the state should focus on the needs of the country.
Deputy President Kithure Kindiki and National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula have castigated Catholic Archbishop Anthony Muheria for equating the Kenya Kwanza administration to an advertising agency. Speaking during the burial of Mr. King Marua, the father of Senate Speaker Amason King in Kilifi, Kindiki said the government is mandated by the Constitution to tell Kenyans about its development programs and plans.
Nimeona viongozi wengine wa kisiasa na wakijaribu kutunyamazisha tusiongee mambo ya ile programs ambazo serikali inafanyia wananchi. Na mimi nataka tukumbuke ya kwamba katiba yetu inadai serikali ieleze wananchi ile mipangilio yote inataka kutekeleza ili wananchi waamue kama serikali iendelee na hiyo mambo ama isiendelee. Vile vile wakati maamuzi yamefanywa, katiba inadai ya kwamba wananchi waelezwe wakati hayo mambo yanafanywa na baada ya hayo mambo kufanyika.
Kindiki's jab at the man of the cloth came shortly after Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi issued his response over Muheria's comments. Mudavadi termed his statement as misleading and unfair. He also defended the government, stating that it was only engaging the public to keep Kenyans informed.
Kuna viongozi wengine hata wanatumia nafasi zao kwa jukwaa la kanisa, wanasema serikali isiambie watu wanafanya nini, wafanye tu. Haiwezekani. Kulingana na katiba ni lazima tuwe na public participation, tueleze, kwa sababu huenda tukisema tu serikali ifanye, labda watafanya kitu ambacho kitakera wananchi na wananchi watasema that is dictatorship. Kwa hivyo kuita serikali kama advertising agency ni kupotosha wananchi.
Let's use language that bring people of Kenya together. Kama wewe ni bishop, chunga leni yako. Linda mioyo yetu. Kwa sababu sometimes it's very difficult when you rattle people not to answer you back. Sometimes in a manner that is not appropriate. Ukisema government is not an advertising agency, it means you have not read the Constitution 2010 of the Republic of Kenya.
The remarks by Kindiki, Wetangula and Mudavadi came hot on the heels on a statement made by the Catholic Archbishop Anthony Muheria, who asked the government to reduce its public advertisement and focus on development.
So we take this moment to urge the government they must study how this must work. It's not enough to just give us rhetoric. We need payments, we need reimbursements, and we feel sad that we are hiding our head in the sand and not facing the problems.
He lamented that the Kenya Kwanza administration was obsessed over making a good impression by making noise about his plans instead of actual service. Hilary Kabila, GBS News.
A new poll by Polytrack Africa reveals that 41% of Kenyans disapprove of President William Ruto's move to form broad-based government, while 36.7% support it. 7 months after Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga joined forces, 22% of respondents remain undecided. The survey, conducted through telephone interviews with 1,068 adult sample, also highlights concerns about whether the new government structure will prioritize service delivery delivery, with only 22.1% optimistic and 21.3% doubtful on the anticipated reshuffle of the PS. The poll indicates mixed opinions, with 41.8% supporting changes and 33.7% opposing them, while 24.5% remain uncertain. Many Kenyans also believe government positions should exclude individuals over 60, arguing that urging fresh leadership is needed to advance the country's global agenda. The survey further ranks top-performing PS that Kenyans want retained if Ruto proceeds with the reshuffle. Immigration and Citizen Services PS Julius Baitok and Energy PS Alex Washira led with 76.5% approval ratings. Public Health PS Mary Mudhoni follows closely at 76.2%, while Mining PS Elijah Mwangi, Road PS Joseph Mungai, and Parliamentary Affairs PS Aurelia Rono complete the top 5.
Now, looking at the first question that we posed to our respondents was, do you support the decision by President William Ruto to form the broad-based government? And in this question, 36.7% approved of the president's decision and direction in creating the broad-based government. However, 41.3% are not agreeing with the president's directive to create the broad-based government, while 22% are not sure. So in this question, according to these findings, is that a majority of Kenyans, that is 41.3%, do not approve of the president's direction to create the broad-based government, which has accommodated various members of the opposition in his government. We asked, do you think such an action would have any effect on the functions of various departments, the action being the reshuffling of the principal secretaries? And on this, 61.8%, an above average rating, noted that they view there would be a change should a reshuffle happen, particularly within the PSs in matters of service delivery. 27.1% note that they do not view, or rather they are not that optimistic of any change should there be a reshuffle. Here 11.1% were not sure on whether there would be any change.
Former IBC chairperson Wafula Wanyonyi Chebukati passed away in Nairobi while undergoing treatment at the Nairobi hospital after he became critically ill and admitted to the intensive care unit since January 2023. The former IBC boss breathed his last breath on the 20th of February this year, according to his family. The Political Affairs Desk has prepared the life and the journey feature of the former IBC boss.
Wanyonyi Wafula Chebukati, in accordance with the law, the constitution and the law, I, Wafula Chebukati, hereby declares that Ruto William Samoei.
He was a man that could be described as an independent and brave due to the decisions that he made during his tenure as the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
We are coming in office when the exercise is going on, voter registration is going on. So we are going to hit the ground running to ensure that all the processes and systems involved are in place.
Born on the 22nd of December 1961 in Kiminini Village, Trans Nzoia County, from the Luya community, Wafula Chebukati rose into academia, beginning his studies at St. Peter's Mumias, then proceeded to Bokoli Secondary School, and thereafter completing his secondary education at Lenana High School in Nairobi County. He pursued higher education at the University of Nairobi, where he earned a Bachelor's of Law degree in 1986, and thereafter enhanced his credentials with a Master's degree in Business Administration from the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology.
There was violence, some people died, which led to the formation of the multi-sectoral forum. I have invited the religious leaders for a prayer breakfast on Monday 23rd to pray for myself and the commissioners before we start working.
After completing his studies at the university, Chebukati for 20 years ran a sole proprietorship law firm before founding Kuto and Associates Advocates in Nairobi in 2006, serving as the managing partner of this firm as he joined politics in 2007 general elections, after which he unsuccessfully lost to Eugene Wamalwa in the Saboti parliamentary race, a position he contested on the ODM party ticket, a party then led by Raila Odinga.
Tutavuka siku ya Jumanne alfajiri ni sisi kuvuka mto Jordan, kutoka mto Jordan kuingia pande ile Canaan, sio?
Chebukati would later step down from running his law firm in 2017, adhering to the legal requirements to avoid a conflict of interest as one of the eligibility to run for an independent Electoral and Boundaries Commissioner's position, after which he was appointed by the retired President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and sworn in as the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, succeeding Ahmed Isaac Hassan.
I, Wanyonyi Wafula Chebukati, having been appointed chairperson to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
He would later oversaw the 2017 general elections, which resulted to Uhuru Kenyatta's victory over Raila, the victory that was annulled by the Supreme Court due to irregularities leading to the repeat of the elections in October 2017, which Kenyatta won after Odinga boycotted the elections.
And having garnered 8,203,290 votes, representing 54.27% of the votes, and 25% in 35 counties, I therefore wish to declare Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta.
His tenure was faced with the internal IEBC divisions, leading to the resignation of Roslyn Akombe and the exit of the Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba amid the opposition protest led by Raila Odinga. The 2022 general elections came in and Wafula Chebukati chaired it, after which President William Ruto was declared a winner with 50.9% of the total votes against Odinga's 48.85%. The results, which the four IEBC commissioners, dubbed as Cherera 4, publicly rejected, but the Supreme Court upheld Ruto's victory.
Chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission hereby declares that Ruto William Samoei has been duly elected as the president.
In 2023, President William Ruto awarded Wafula Chebukati the Elder of the Order of the Golden Heart, also abbreviated as EGH, a Kenya's second highest civilian's honor for his service. However, he faced the allegations of bias and corruption, including a 2017 claim of conflict of interest involving his law firm, which the parliament dismissed due to lack of evidence. Chebukati has left behind a widow, Mary Chebukati, and the children, though he kept his family life private and has stayed out of the public eye since 2023 till his final death. We say goodbye forever, Chebukati. Davis Karani, GBS News, Nairobi.
Nyeri County marked World Thinking Day 2025 with the gathering at Moi Complex Primary School, where First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto joined the Kenya Girl Guides community in celebration. Now, the annual event, observed globally by Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, honors the shared birthday of scouting pioneers Lord Baden-Powell and Lady Olive Baden-Powell, emphasizing unity, empowerment, the voices of the young women. At the event, the First Lady called for collective efforts to ensure every girl has access to quality education, highlighting hunger as a major barrier to school enrollment and retention. She emphasized the need to achieve Kenya's universal school feeding goal, which aims to provide meals to 10 million children by 2030 as part of the government strategy for 100% school enrollment and retention. The event was attended by several key leaders, including Anne Wangombe, PS for Gender and Affirmative Action, Nyeri Town Member of Parliament Duncan Madhenge, and representatives from the Kenya Girls Guide Association. Their presence underscored the national commitment to supporting young girls in education and leadership.
Let us all continue to champion the values of the Kenya Girl Guides Association: dignity, integrity, spirituality, servant leadership, and citizenship. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the partners and stakeholders who helped the Kenya Girl Guides Association fulfill its mandate. To the Girl Guides, you are the leaders of today. Let us apply the skills and values of the Girl Guide movement in our daily lives. This training ground will prepare you for more responsibilities in the future and accelerate us towards the future we desire. Like the hummingbird story told by Professor Wangare Maathai, I may be small and insignificant, but I will always do the best I can. It is also a moment to look forward and consider the crucial steps we must take to shape a brighter and more inclusive future for the next generation of young girls and women in Kenya and around the globe.
Former presidential candidate and opposition leader Kizza Besigye faces renewed legal battles and deteriorating health. Once a formidable challenger who contested President Museveni not once, not twice, but 4 times, Besigye now finds himself in a precarious state both physically and politically. Following the formal presentation of new treason charges, his legal team urgently requested his transfer to a better medical facility, but the magistrate denied the appeal, leaving concerns over his health.
Once the unyielding force that dared to challenge Museveni, not once, not twice, but 4 times, Kizza Besigye's shadow now tells a different story, a tale of political prosecution, relentless arrest, and fading influence. The fierce opposition leader, once a symbol of defiance,
The Parliament of Uganda decided they are not going to have free and fair elections. So we have a conference. What the people want and what Parliament wants. That Parliament is a bold Parliament. You remember some time back, they voted the MP for 5 million, change the constitution. This time, this 9th Parliament, the 9 MPs received 110.
now sits in a wheelchair. His once fiery spirit seemingly dimmed. But is he truly defeated? After a grueling week-long hunger strike, Besigye ended his protest as formal charges are finally presented in a civilian court. Yet, his struggles are far from over. Despite pleas from his legal team, a request for better medical care was denied, leaving him to battle deteriorating health behind bars.
With regard to the prayers for personalized medical examination and treatment of A1, I am constrained to make such an order as my only jurisdiction in this matter, which is a capital offense, is to communicate the charge to the accused persons, and when investigations are done, then commit each of them to High Court for trial. Since A1 is represented, is advised to seek for remedy from the appropriate court, which is the High Court. But for now, all the accused persons are remanded to Luzira Upper Prison, and the matter is adjourned for mention to the 7th of March, 2025.
But the fight isn't just for his life, it's for his freedom. New treason charges accuse Besigye, alongside his ally Obed Lotale and UPDF soldier Dennis Oola, of plotting to overthrow the Ugandan government between 2023 and November 2024. In a dramatic courtroom twist, they were barred from entering a plea due to the severity of the charges. Treason, a crime that carries the possibility of the death penalty. Remanded until March 7, 2025, Besigye's fate hangs in the balance as the prosecution continues its investigation. Accused of conspiring abroad to destabilize the regime, His case has ignited a firestorm, drawing international attention, and calls for his release on humanitarian grounds. Susan Nganga, GBS News.
It is time for us to take a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. That's the best line in studio, Boda before. We'll be right back.
So through the four gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
그리고 우리가 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 통해 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins.
지셨고,
he carried our sins.
십자가에 못 박혀 죽어 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고,
and he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins.
무덤에 들어가셨다가,
and he was put into the tomb.
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified.
우리 죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our sins.
예수 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데.
And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Hello, kids. Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 25 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all these numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun.
AS and A levels is a qualification program that is advanced. That is after one has completed the high GCSE program, then they advise to continue for AS and A level. AS typically is a 1-year program, and A levels is done in the 2nd year after completing the AS level. And this one equips the student with the knowledge that is recommended for the university and also by employers outside the countries or within the country.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. The government has proposed a series of new measures to regulate the boda industry in a bid to curb reckless driving and improve public safety. The proposed regulations contained in the Public Transport Bill 2023 outline stricter rules and operators, including mandatory registration, installation of tracking devices, and the provision of safety gear. However, the bill has faced significant opposition from boda riders who argue that the measures will still stifle their livelihoods.
The government has proposed a list of new measures aimed at regulating the boda industry, which has been seen for flaunting traffic rules and compromising public safety. The proposed regulations outlined in the Public Transport 2023 will require anyone operating a motorcycle for commercial purposes to register with the respective county executive committee and pay the necessary fees. The county executive committee members will then submit a register of licensed operators to the National Transport and Safety Authorities every 3 months. Additionally, owners will need to register with the cooperative society recognized under the Cooperative Societies Act. A key provision in the bill mandates that motorcycle owners install tracking device on their vehicles for real-time monitoring of riders' location. The devices must be approved by the respective county executive member, who will maintain a database of all devices in the county. The raiders will be required to ensure the devices are functional at all times and report any malfunctions or damage to the county executive. The bill also stipulates that motorcycle owners should not permit anyone without a valid driver's license that corresponds to the class of motorcycle they operate. Those contracted to ride motorcycles must have valid employment contracts with the owners. Motorcycle owners will also be required to provide riders with 2 helmets that comply with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, as well as 2 reflective jackets. Further, the bill specifies that no load exceeding 50 kilograms should be carried, nor can an adult passenger and a load be carried at the same time. Additionally, any child under 13 years of age must be accompanied by an adult and seated between the rider and the passenger. Penalties outlined in the bill include a fine of 20,000 or a 6-month jail term for riders who use pavements, pedestrian walkways or undesignated areas. Riders who participate in gang-related intimidation, threats or harm against others face a fine of 100,000, 1-year jail term or both. The proposed bill has faced mounting oppositions from Boda riders, with leaders in the sector arguing that the measures threaten to suppress over 2 million people working in the industry. Treason, GBS News.
Amid rising violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Kenyan government is now considering evacuating its citizens from the country. This follows escalating clashes between security forces and the M23 rebel group, with the conflict spreading beyond the eastern region. Kenyan authorities are urging nationals to exercise extreme caution as the security situation continues to deteriorate.
The Kenyan government is weighing the option of evacuating its citizens from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The move comes as the country faces a surge in violence, with intense fighting between security forces and the M23 rebel group, which has spread beyond the eastern region, inching closer to more populated areas. Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi expressed deep concern over the increasingly volatile situation in a statement issued Thursday evening. He urged all Kenyans in the DRC to remain vigilant and take immediate action to ensure their safety, advising them to seek evacuation if necessary. Mudavadi also reiterated calls for an urgent ceasefire, urging both local and regional leaders to implement the peace resolutions agreed upon during the recent joint East African Cooperation and Southern African Development Community high-level meeting in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. As the violence intensifies, the Kenyan government is on high alert, closely monitoring the situation and preparing all possible measures to safeguard the lives of its citizens in Congo.
The Director of Public Prosecutions has filed an appeal against acquittal of former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu in a high-profile money laundering case involving 588 million shillings. This follows a recent court ruling where Waititu was sentenced to 12 years in prison or a fine of 52.5 million shillings for corruption. However, he and his co-accused wife Susan Ndungu were acquitted of money laundering charges. The DPP urges that the trial magistrate made significant errors in the judgment and is now seeking to have the acquittal overturned.
The Director of Public Prosecutions has filed an appeal against the acquittal of former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu in a money laundering case involving 588 million. This appeal follows Waititu's sentencing last week to 12 years in prison or a 52.5 million fine after being found guilty of conflict of interest in a corruption case. Waititu was charged alongside his wife Susan Ndungu, who was sentenced to 1 year in prison or a 500,000 fine. Despite their conviction on graft-related charges, the court acquitted them of 3 counts of money laundering. The DPP, however, is seeking the High Court's intervention to overturn this acquittal. In the appeal, the DPP argues that the trial magistrate made errors in both law and fact by acquitting Waititu and his wife, despite what the prosecution claims is overwhelming evidence of money laundering. The DPP asserts that the trial magistrate wrongly found that while there was sufficient evidence against the accused in money laundering case, Waititu should still be considered the originator of the corrupt offences, including conflict of interest and dealing with suspected property. The DPP emphasizes that Waititu was allegedly involved in a scheme to launder 12.4 million between July 2018 and March 2019, with funds transferred from Testimony Enterprises Limited to Seika 2 Developers Limited to disguise their illicit origin. While the DPP welcomed Waititu's conviction on the corruption charges, it remains firm in its pursuit of justice regarding the money laundering charges. The DPP has outlined 12 compelling reasons for Waititu's conviction on money laundering charge and is calling for the High Court to review and overturn the acquittal. Meanwhile, Waititu has also filed an appeal challenging the lower court's sentencing. Through his lawyer Dunstan Omari, Waititu argues that he is aggrieved by the findings and has moved to the High Court to contest the verdict. Trizatiengo, GBS News.
We are taking a short break. Keep your feedback streaming into our social media platforms at GBS TV Africa. The SMS line is 21144. We'll be right back.
Today, it's that day that I would like us just to have that conversation on monthly matters.
Let's talk of Mama Fua, who like akifanya shughuli zake hapa kule has more or less that amount.
Yeah, so on that part, I would say this. When you're doing your savings, you can have, we normally talk about having 3 buckets. So we will just talk about income, budgeting, saving, and investment. Those are the 4 areas we will look at.
Happens to those like me who are planning to retire early.
We are basically looking at our incomes. We also talk about savings and investment. So those are the 3. I will not add the 4th one, which we all shy of talking about. So I would say it's not how much I am earning, but it is how much I set aside. So
this is the Youth Hub show that gets a groove on. We have so many topics lined up for you guys.
Can you survive without internet?
No, I can't. Siwezi survive bila internet mimi.
Hii ni kama kuambia mtu mwenye alikuwa amezoea kushindana nguo, mwambie toa nguo ushinde.
She's still like Tito who believes in miracles.
Don't you believe in miracles?
Don't you believe in miracles?
If you're in love, akili inafungika na macho. You won't see anything negative in the relationship.
So my films, I can get funding to get a lot of time to do pre-production. So that when I'm shooting, costume nilishapanga kila watu wako wanajua navaje, shooting location, like that process ya kwenda ku secure location, kwenda kwenye video secure location you get and like wow, hii location nikeza pata,
this is where it will all happen.
It makes you happy.
Kuwa na vitu mingi sana mapanga le nini, tukisema hizo issues zimekuwa zinachocha sana, tunataka kutuka hivyo tu bila hii mambo ya mneti.
Are you ready? So guess the logo. Reveal.
Cadillac.
Cadillac. Unasema Cadillac. Tunapenda watu we love communicating, we love welcoming people.
Internet ilikuja kutotoa pangiza.
The gift of a man will place you in a company of great men. Neza kufungulia mlango. What 2 things can you never eat for breakfast?
The fact that I started selling art, that's where the interest came in. Yeah, they know this thing can pay.
And who has been your biggest cheerleader in your art journey?
My biggest?
Well.
Oh yeah, IG, I'm artist Victor Mtua. Facebook is Victor Mtua. Of course, the first time I sold my art at relatively 50K.
Ati?
Time niliuza art yangu like 50K.
Oh, Victor, kwanza before hata uoneshane watu paintings zako, nataka kuuliza if I was to pay you, nikwambie like usiwahi chora tena, usiwahi paint tena, would you? Unaweza acha? You are famous, what will your stage name be?
My stage name?
Ungekuwa pale kwa stage, ungekuwa unajiintroduce kana nani?
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back now to international news. A commission in Niger has proposed a 5-year transition to civilian rule, extending the junta's initial 3-year plan rejected by ECOWAS. The recommendations include limiting political parties and allowing junta officials to run in future elections. The final decision rests with the ruling military leaders.
A commission in junta-led Niger has recommended a 5-year transition time framework back to civilian rule. Back in 2023, when the military seized power ousting Mohamed Bazoum, the junta suggested 3 years for the transition, which ECOWAS rejected. Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso left the bloc after political disagreements. The president of the commission said a new charter would be created, allowing for 2 to 5 political parties. He added that junta officials would be able to participate in future votes. The commission also chose to promote Brigadier General Abdulrahman Tiani, the junta leader who led Niger Presidential Guard before the coup, to the rank of Army General. For its works, the commission consulted with hundreds of delegates. Among them were lawyers, architects, and teachers. Political parties were not involved. The junta will make the final call on the transition timeline after receiving the commission reports. The junta final decision on the transition timeline will be a defining moment for Niger political future. With opposition voices excluded from consultations and junta officials allowed to contest future election, concerns over democratic credibility remain high. Niger's path back to civilian rule remains uncertain, raising questions about the true intent behind the extended transition. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
In a chilling and devastating attack, at least 70 Christians have been found beheaded in a church in Democratic Republic of Congo, marking yet another tragic chapter in the escalating violence in the region. The attack is believed to have been carried out by an allied democratic forces, an armed group notorious for its brutal assault in eastern Congo. This massacre highlights the growing danger faced by religious communities in the country, with persecution and violence continuing to spiral out of control.
In a harrowing discovery, 70 Christian victims have been found beheaded in a church in an abandoned village in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The bodies, presumed to have been held hostage for days, were found tied up in what is being described as a horrific scene of religious persecution. The victims' faith and tragic end serve as a stark reminder of the growing violence and suffering in the region. Tristan Asbej, Hungary's State Secretary for Persecuted Christians, expressed his outrage over the incident in a post on social media, calling for the world to recognize and act against Christian persecution. The massacre is linked to the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, a brutal militia group operating in the region. While the M23 rebels have garnered much of the international focus, the ADF remains one of the deadliest armed groups in the area, notorious for its targeting of civilians and religious groups. The violence is part of a broader conflict in eastern Congo, where clashes between government forces and rebel groups have displaced hundreds of thousands, creating a dire humanitarian crisis. The United Nations has warned that the situation is worsening, with over 350,000 people left homeless as a result of the violence. As the death toll continues to rise, the world watches as Congo's eastern region becomes a symbol of the escalating peril faced by innocent civilians. With no clear resolution in sight, the international community faces growing pressure to intervene and provide aid to those suffering in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Juguna.
A Tunisian judge on Thursday released prominent journalist Mohamed Bahaleb, a vocal critic of President Kais Saied. The move has raised hopes among the opposition for the release of other detained journalists and political figures. Bahaleb's release followed the Wednesday release of Sahim Ben, former head of Truth and Dignity Commission, and Rihad, a former minister. However, press freedom advocates argue that the Tunisian government continues to suppress dissent through legal crackdowns and arrest.
In recent years, Tunisia has witnessed a significant erosion of press freedom, with journalists facing increasing suppression under President Kais Saied administration. Bugaleb's release follows the Wednesday release of Sihem Ben Sedrin, former head of the Truth Dignity Commission, and Riyad Muka, a former minister. However, press freedom advocates argue that Tunisian government continues to suppress dissent through legal crackdowns and arrest. Since President Said's power grab in 2021, authorities have targeted journalists and opposition figures using controversial laws such as Decree 54, which criminalizes false news. Several journalists, including Bohen Bisis and Mulad Gedi, have been imprisoned under this law for criticizing the government. In response, Tunisia journalists have staged multiple protests demanding press freedom.
Main demands are the freedom of expression and freedom of the press, not only for journalists, but also for Tunisia and the people of Tunisia.
I am proud of what the journalists of Dar es Sabah have been doing so far, but I'm also a little sad that we've had to come to this after January the 14th, having to defend freedom of the press reluctantly.
Demonstrations in Tunis have seen journalists holding placards reading "Journalism is not a crime" and calling for an end to state repression. The National Syndicate of Tunisian Journalists have condemned the crackdown, warning of increasing authoritarianism. Despite international condemnation, including from human rights groups and European Union, Tunisian media landscape remains under threat, with many journalists fearing further government retaliation. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has issued a stark warning at the CARICOM summit in Bridgetown, now calling on global leaders to act urgently to protect the Caribbean from the devastating impacts of climate change as the region faces increasingly severe storms, rising seas and growing economic strain. Guterres stressed that international cooperation is key to ensuring a sustainable future for the islands.
The Caribbean, renowned by its stunning beauty and vibrant culture, is under siege by a growing climate crisis. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres addressed leaders at the CARICOM summit in Barbados, where he outlined the severe challenges the region faces due to environmental threats. Guterres described the ongoing challenges described by the Caribbean, where the Caribbean is grappling with intensifying storm, rising sea levels, and economic damage driven by climate change. Guterres made a poignant point, stressing that the region, while contributing little to global environmental harm, is bearing the brunt of a crisis it did not create.
The crisis you have done next to nothing to create is wrecking economies, ruining lives, and threatening your very existence. Together you have fought tooth and nail for the global commitment to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees.
In his speech, the UN chief called on the world's major economies, especially the G20 nations, to take the lead in cutting emissions and investing in cleaner energy. He underscored the opportunity of the Caribbean to transition to renewable energy, tapping into vast solar, wind, and geothermal potential to reduce dependence on costly fossil fuel imports. Guterres urged nations to come together ahead of COP30 to deliver a new ambitious climate action plan, emphasizing the importance of collective global effort to tackle the climate crisis. The fate of the Caribbean depends on the action of leaders today to ensure a brighter and more sustainable tomorrow. Joy Kuja, GBS News.
The Trump administration is ending deportation protections for over 500,000 Haitians, revoking their temporary protected status and leaving them vulnerable to removal by August. The move, part of the broader crackdown on immigration, comes despite worsening violence and instability in Haiti, where gangs control most of the capital and thousands have been killed or displaced.
The Trump administration is throwing out protection that shielded roughly 500,000 Haitians from deportation, meaning they would lose their work permits and could be eligible to be removed from the countries by August. The decision announced Thursday is part of a sweeping effort by the Trump administration to make good on campaign promises to carry out mass deportations and specifically to scale back the use of the temporarily protected status designation, which was widely expanded under the Biden administration to cover about 1 million immigrants. The Department of Homeland Security said in a news release that it was vacating a Biden administration decision to renew temporarily protected status, which gave people legal authority to be in the country, but does not provide a long-term path to citizenship for Haitians. People with the protection are reliant on the government renewing their status when it expires. Critics, including Republican and the Trump administration, have said that over time, the renewal of the protection status becomes automatic, regardless of what is happening in the person's home country. Homeland Security said an estimated 57,000 Haitians were eligible for TPS protections as of 2011. But by July of last year, that number had climbed to 520,684. More than 5,600 people were reported killed last year in Haiti, according to the United Nations. And many of the displaced are living in overcrowded makeshift shelters, including abandoned government buildings where rapes are becoming increasingly common. Gangs control 85% of Haiti's capital and have launched new attacks to seize control of even more territory. Recent massacres have claimed the lives of hundreds of civilians. Besigye, GBS News.
The U.S. government is making significant budget cuts, and the Internal Revenue Service is taking a major hit as part of President Donald Trump's broad initiative to downsize federal agencies. Approximately 6,000 IRS employees are being laid off. These cuts are happening right in the middle of tax season, sparking concerns about potential disruptions for everyday Americans.
Tearful announcement. Christy Armstrong, the Internal Revenue Service Director of Talent Acquisition, told staff that roughly 6,000 employees are losing their jobs. The cut represents about 6% of the agency's workforce, a move made during the busiest tax filing season of the year. Leading this government downsizing effort is Elon Musk, a billionaire and President Trump's biggest campaign donor. Musk made headline when he was handed a chainsaw on stage, symbolizing the administration's deep cut to federal agencies. The layoffs are part of Trump's push to slash the federal workforce, targeting tens of thousands of employees in agencies from IRS to the U.S. Postal Services. At the IRS, workers in Kansas City reported being unable to access anything on their computer except the emails that they received dismissal notices. Critics says the cuts are far-reaching and reckless. Contracts worth $8.5 billion for foreign aid and diversity training have been cancelled. Even the small team regulating Tesla's self-driving cars has lost half of its staff. President Trump and Elon Musk have set a bold goal cutting at least $1 trillion from $6.7 trillion federal budget. While supporters applaud the effort to shrink what they call a bloated government, others worry it's going too far. The impact is already being felt. IRS workers are scrambling to handle $140 million tax return due to April 15th, while residents in Kansas cities and across the country worry about the delays and errors. As the government slashes jobs and budgets, Americans are left to wonder how these sweeping changes will affect the services they rely on every day. Joy Kuja, GBS News.
Well, it's time for us to it's time for your most favorite segment of the show, the sports news. Let's get sporty. Absa Bank Kenya has organized a financial literacy and nutrition training program for 105 athletes ahead of the 2025 Absa Sirikwa Classic World Cross Country Tour. The training held at Kiptagat Training Camp was conducted in partnership with the long-distance champion Eliud Kipchoge and featured sessions on budgeting, retirement planning, and nutrition facilitated by Nutrition by Kenya. The initiative aims to equip athletes with essential skills for both their sporting careers and financial well-being. Now, speaking at the event, Absa Bank Rift Valley Regional Manager Julia Songok emphasized the importance of holistic support for athletes beyond the track. He noted that financial literacy, proper nutrition, and access to quality sportwear contribute significantly to their long-term success. Kipchoge echoed his sentiment, highlighting the need for financial discipline among the athletes and praising ABSA for providing resources, including food, accommodation, and equipment support. The ABSA Sirikwa Classic, set for February 22nd at Lobo Village in Eldoret, will attract local and international athletes. The top winners in the senior category will receive $6,000, while under-20 champions will earn at least $1,000. The annual event is part of the World Athletics Cross-Country Tour, featuring competitions across 14 countries worldwide.
I believe knowledge is power, and the only thing actually to live around is to get knowledge. And how to get knowledge is to have a seminar like this one, and above all, ABSA stand, giving actually food to athletes. Athletes have a lot of problems as far as food and accommodation and equipment are concerned. But these people have done a lot. That's I'm saying these initiatives should actually continue. If so, actually quarterly, and people will be comfortable, they will train well, people will get a lot of knowledge. If somebody gets the money, he or she knows where to put it and how to spend it.
Where we frequently come here, we network, we do financial wellness program, just to inspire the athletes that are here, to encourage them, and to keep motivating them, and sharing learnings from them, because there's a lot we are learning from them. The level of resilience, the good spirit of hard work. You look around here in the camp, and there are so many good quotes that you can see, like leaving this place better than you found it, and so many other amazing inspirational stories that Eliud stands for. So we're here just to reflect and share with them, and using Eliud as a role model, just to inspire these young upcoming athletes.
And that's all we had for you tonight at GBS News at 9. It is always a pleasure having you on board. Let's do this again next time, same channel. My name is Stephen George. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Paul Madenge. Good night.